Hey, HannahMouse1 here. Welcome to part 2 of my Pumpkin Patch Panic tutorial series, where I'll show you how to make a Halloween themed game over the course of a week. Last time we sorted player movement, and today we'll be adding in the pumpkins. Go to the pumpkin sprite and drag in a when green flag is clicked block and attach a hide block. Then drag in a when I receive play block. We want to generate a pumpkin for each space in the plant bed. To do this, we're going to create a custom block. Go to My Blocks, click Make a Block, and call it Clone. Select Run Without Screen Refresh and click OK. Add a clone block to the When I Receive Play script. Now we're going to define our clone script. For this, we're going to need to create a new variable for this sprite only called thisValue. Under the define clone script, set this value to 0. Then add a repeat loop, repeating 40 times. Within this loop, create clone of myself and change this value by 1. Add a when I start as a clone block, and to this attach a forever loop. We're going to need 2 more variables, both for this sprite only, called this xpos and this ypos. Within the loop, we'll need a set this xpos block and a set this ypos block. We're going to need some math to set these positions correctly. For the xpos, add a subtraction operator and add a multiplication operator into the left hand side. Into the left hand side of that, add a mod operator. The mod, or modulus, of 2 numbers is the remainder when the first is divided by the second. So 2 mod 2 will be 0, 3 mod 2 will be 1, etc. Set the first input space to be this value and the second to be 8, which is the number of pumpkins in a row. The third should be 32, or the width of each tile space, and the final input should be 112. For ypos, we again need a subtraction with a multiplication in the left hand side. Into the left hand side of this, add a floor operator, which will round down whatever value is in the input space, and into said input space add a division operator. Into the first empty input space add a this value input. Set the second to 8, and then both the third and fourth spaces should be 32. Then show and go to this xpos, this ypos. Let's get the pumpkins a growing, shall we? Create a new list and call it pumpkins. And at the top of our clone script, add a delete all of pumpkins block. And within the loop, add 0 to pumpkins. Now go back to the player sprite and create a new block. Into the namespace, type update growth rate and add a number or text input called growth rate. Select Run Without Screen Refresh and click OK. Drag an update block into the forever loop with the movement block. Set growth rate to 2500. Let's get this defined. For this, we need to create a new variable for all sprites called updating. Under the define block, set updating to 1. Then drag in a repeat loop and set the number of repeats to the length of pumpkins. Into the loop, add an if-else statement. Drag an equals operator into the condition space and an item 1 of pumpkins input into the left hand side. Replace 1 with updating and type 0 into the right hand side of the equals operator. Drag an if statement into the if portion of the function. Set the condition to be pick random 1 to growth rate is equal to 1, and within the function replace updating of pumpkins with 1. In the else portion of the if else function, add an if function. Drag an and operator into the condition space. The first of these conditions should be item updating of pumpkins is less than 4, and the second should be pick random 1 to 100 is equal to 1. Within this function, replace item updating of pumpkins plus 1. After the if else function, change updating by 1. This block will cycle through the pumpkins list, and if the pumpkin isn't yet growing, it might start them growing or progress an already growing pumpkin to the next stage. Now let's get the pumpkin clones to display these changes. Go back to the pumpkin sprite and find the when I start as a clone script. We need an if else function. Move the goto block to after this function, the show block into the else portion of the function, and the set x and y blocks into the if portion. Put this into the forever loop and drag an equals operator into the condition space. We need the condition to read if item this value of pumpkins plus 1 is equal to 0. We need a hide block in the if portion and a switch costume block in the else portion. For the costume, switch item to this value plus 1 of pumpkins. The pumpkins will now grow. Now, let's make it so that the player can pick the pumpkins up. We need 2 more variables for this, both for all sprites, touching and holding. After the goto block in the forever loop, change y by 11. This is to account for the vertical offset between the player and pumpkin sprites. Then add an if-else function. Set the condition to be if distance to player is less than 16, and within this portion of the else function, set touching to this value. Add an if statement into the else portion and set the condition of this to be if touching is equal to this value, and in this, set touching to none. Then change y by minus 11. We also need to go back to the player sprite and after the update block, set x to player x and y to player y. I want the fully grown pumpkins to light up if touching the player, so after where we set the pumpkin's costume, add a set brightness to 0 block. After this, add an if statement with the condition if this value plus 1 of pumpkins is 4. Within the function, add another if function with the condition touching equals this value. Within the function, set brightness to 25. Now go back to the player sprite and under the play script which handles our gameplay loop, loop. Set holding to none before the forever loop. Then add in a when key E is pressed block. To this, attach an if-else statement and set the condition to read if holding is equal to none. Drag an if statement into the if portion. The condition should be if touching plus 1 of pumpkins is equal to 4. In the function, set holding to touching. Within the else portion, set holding to none. Go up to where the player clones set their costumes and drag the body set costume block into the if portion of the if-else statement. Set the condition to be if holding is equal to none. Right-click and duplicate the set costume block from the if portion and put the new block into the else portion of the function. Within this, drag the costume input into the left-hand side of the addition operator and type 4 into the other. Now go back to the pumpkin sprite. After the if statement that highlights the pumpkin that the player is touching, add another if statement. This time, we need the condition to be if holding is equal to this value. Within this, hide and set this X pos to player X and set this Y pos to player Y. The player can now pick up and move the pumpkins. Now go to the box sprite. Within this, add a when green flag is clicked block and go to X64 and Y minus 120 and hide. Then add a when I receive play and a show. Add a forever loop, attach an if-else statement and set the condition to read if distance to player is less than 32. In the if portion, set brightness effect to 10. Else, set brightness effect to 0. Go back to the player sprite and find the when E key is pressed script. Add an if statement into the else portion of the existing function before the set holding to none block. Set the condition to read if distance to box is less than 32. Within the function, replace holding plus 1 of pumpkins with 0. Now we need a new variable for all sprites called score. Within the function, change score by 1. Go back to the play script with the gameplay loop, set score to 0 before the forever loop. While the game is now technically playable, you might notice that something's a bit off with how the sprites are being displayed. Right now the game has no understanding of depth, so doesn't know the order in which sprites should be shown in front of others. Let's fix that by implementing something called sorting order. Go to the workspace for the stage. Add a when I receive play block and to this attach a forever loop. We're going to create a custom block. Call it sorting order and make sure that run without screen refresh is selected. Add this new block into the forever loop. We also need a new list. Call it sorting order. Under the define sorting order block, delete all of the sorting order list. Then add an if else function. Set the condition to read if player Y is greater than minus 120 and within the if portion, add player to sorting order and then add box to sorting order. Else, we want to add box to sorting order and then add player. This will log whether the player or the box should be on top. Now let's add all of the pumpkins to this list. To do this, create a new variable called sort. In our sorting order script, we want this set to 1 and then add a repeat loop. Set the number of repeats to be length of pumpkins. We now need another variable. Let's call it sort check. Within the loop, set sort check to 1 and then we need another repeat loop with length of sorting order as the number of repeats. This means that for each pumpkin, it checks every item in the sorting order list to see where it fits. Within the loop, add an if statement. Drag a not operator into the condition space and then add a sorting order contains thing block into that. Into the input of that, drag a join operator and we want to join the word pumpkin with the sort variable. But before we can sort the pumpkins, we need a way to reference their Y positions. Go back to the pumpkin sprite and create a new list, pumpkin Ys. In the clone script where we generate all of the pumpkins, delete all of pumpkin Ys before the loop and add 0 to pumpkins within said loop. Then find the part of the when I started the clone script where the clone's Y position is shifted by 11. Here, we want to replace item this val plus 1 of pumpkin Ys with this Y pos. Now go back to the stages workspace and our sorting order script. Add an if else statement into the if function. Set the condition to be if item sort check of sorting order is equal to box then, and add another if statement into this. Drag a greater than operator into the condition space. We need this to read if item sort of pumpkin Ys is greater than minus 120 then, and within this function, insert join pumpkin sort at sort check of sorting order. Right click the inner if statement to duplicate it and drag it into the empty else function. This time we want it to be if item sort check of sorting order is equal to player and replace the minus 120 with the variable player Y. And finally, we're going to add in the comparison for if it's comparing to a different pumpkin. Add in an if else statement into the empty else function. Drag an equals operator into the condition space. We need the condition to read if length of item sort check of sorting order is equal to 8 then. Drag an if statement into the if portion of the function and drag a less than operator into the condition space. Set the left hand side to item letter 8 of sort check of sorting order of pumpkin Ys and the the right hand side to item sort of pumpkin wise. Within the function insert join pumpkin sort at sort check of sorting order. Duplicate this inner if statement and drag it into the empty else function. Drag this letter 8 of sort check of sorting order operator into the left hand side of a join operator. For the other side, duplicate and drag in that same letter 8 operator and change the 8 to a 9. Then we need a change sort check by one block at the end, 2 loops in. Then one loop in, we need an if statement. Drag a not operator into the condition space. We need this to read if not sorting order contains join pumpkin sort then. Within the function, add join pumpkin sort to sorting order, and after the function a change sort by 1. All of the entities are now added to the sorting order list, and we now just need to get the pumpkin sprites to use this when deciding what layer to show them in. Let's head back to the player sprite. Find the script where we set the clones' costumes, and at the end of the forever loop add a go to back layer block and a go forward 1 layers block. Drag an item tag of thing in sorting order block into the input space and type in player into the input space of that. We can now move on to the pumpkins. Go to the part of the code where the pumpkin's Y position is shifted by 11 and go to back layer. We need another go forward block with another item tag of thing in sorting order block. This time we need a join operator as the input, with the left hand side as pumpkin and the right hand side as this value +1. And because the player counts as 2 layers, one for the body, one for the legs, we need one more go forward block. This time with the input, this Y pos is less than player Y. Finally go to the box sprite. Within the forever loop, go to back layer, go forward item tag of box in sorting order layers, and go forward Y position is less than player Y. And with that, the player appears in the correct layer in relation to the pumpkins and the box. So let's leave it there today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you did. It lets me know there's something you want to see more of. Join the Discord linked in the description, and I'll see you tomorrow when we'll be adding in the enemies. Bye!